Thank you for joining us at this hour. I'm Daniel Choy here to provide you with the latest. British Prime Minister David Cameron has condemned the beheading of a Scottish aid worker as an act of pure evil following the release of a video appearing to show the killing of David Haines by an Islamic State militant. Cameron says the UK will do, quote, everything in its power to hunt down these murderers and ensure they face justice, however long it takes. Haines was kidnapped in March last year in Syria while helping a French humanitarian aid agency there. The video was released Saturday by Islamic State militants. In it, a man appearing to be Haines kneels in front of a masked man who warns alliance with the U.S. will only accelerate the UK's destruction. Haines is the third Western captive taken by the Islamic State, which has kept her territory in Iraq and Syria. Moving on to other stories, National Security Advisor Kim Kwon-jin left on a four-day trip to the United States this Sunday. While in Washington, Kim will meet with his American counterpart Susan Rice and other senior U.S. officials for discussions on a wide range of issues, including North Korea. Kim is also expected to discuss Seoul's plans to support Washington's fight against the Islamic State. This is Kim's first trip to the U.S. since taking office in June and comes during a time when North Korea is taking aggressive steps to bring itself out of diplomatic isolation. Pyongyang's longtime diplomatic heavyweight Kang Seok-ju is on a four-nation trip to Europe, and their foreign minister Ri Su-young plans to address the UN General Assembly in New York later this month. And on the sidelines of that upcoming UN General Assembly, a high-level meeting on North Korea's human rights situation will take place. It will bring renewed attention to the issue following a landmark UN report earlier this year that found widespread, systematic, and gross human rights violations. Our Kim Min-ji reports.
A renewed focus on North Korea's human rights situation is expected to heighten diplomatic tensions at the upcoming UN General Assembly. This as top diplomats from South Korea and the U.S. prepare to attend a high-level meeting on the North's human rights issue scheduled to take place on the sidelines of the UN gathering. The meeting has been organized as a way to garner support for a UN General Assembly resolution on the issue. Pyongyang's human rights situation has received greater international attention this year following the release of a report by the UN Commission of Inquiry that accuses North Korea's leaders of widespread, systematic and gross human rights violations. South Korea's Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se is almost certain to participate in the high-level talks, as is U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry, reflecting Washington's growing interest in the issue. Kerry said last month in his Asia policy speech that North Korea's prison camps must be shut down immediately. Kerry's attendance is likely to draw diplomats from other countries to participate. Meanwhile, North Korea appears to be making efforts to defend itself. The North's Foreign Minister Ri Su-young is scheduled to give a speech at the General Assembly, which will mark North Korea's first ministerial address in 15 years. And on Saturday, Pyongyang released its own assessment of the human rights situation, claiming the rights of North Korean people are well protected under its socialist system. The report also said that Pyongyang is open to holding talks with any country at any time on the human rights situation in North Korea. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
North Korea has sentenced American detainee Matthew Miller to 6 years of hard labor. The North's state-run Korean Central News Agency reported Sunday the sentence was handed down after a brief trial during which Miller was denied permission to appeal. The 24-year-old U.S. citizen is accused of tearing up his visa when he entered Pyongyang in April and demanding political asylum. Photos of the trial display some of Miller's possessions, including his passport and North Korean visa, which was ripped. North Korea has yet to announce a trial date for Jeffrey Fowle, another U.S. citizen who was arrested back in May. Korea and Japan appears to be taking steps to address their long-strained relations. But will their actions be enough to ease the ongoing diplomatic feud over historical and territorial issues? Our Hwang Sung-hee reports.
A rare show of cultural diplomacy between Korea and Japan is raising hopes for improved relations between the two neighbors. Sitting side by side, Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se and Japanese Ambassador to Korea, KoreaJapan, enjoyed the 2014 KoreaJapan Festival in Seoul on Sunday. This marked the first time Minister Yoon attended the annual event.
Holding these events more frequently will not only improve relations between the people of the two countries, but also of the two governments.
On the sidelines of the festival, the two diplomats discussed ways to mend their strained ties, which have tumbled to a new low in recent years due to disputes over historical facts.
We both agreed, well, we had a little chat afterwards, that next year should be a special year in which Japan and Korea should make a fresh start towards a closer and friendlier relationship.
The meeting comes amid speculation about a possible summit between President Park Geun-hye and Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe on the sidelines of the APEC summit in November. The two leaders have not held a bilateral meeting since taking office. But whether these cultural exchanges will be enough to break the ice between President Park and Prime Minister Abe still remain to be seen. 황성희, Arirang News.
Chinese tourists are the biggest spenders on Korea, according to new data from Shinhan Bank and the Korea Cultural Information Service Agency. Foreigners spent a total of 4.8 trillion won, or roughly $4.7 billion, on their credit cards during the first 6 months of the year. Of the total, Chinese consumers accounted for nearly 53%, or about $2.4 billion. The report shows that they spent the most on shopping, followed by accommodations and dining. Japan was the second biggest spender, followed by the U.S. Korea's largest automaker is lagging far behind its foreign rivals in the electric vehicle market, even amid a global spike in EV sales. According to automotive industry portal Marklines, over 60,000 electric vehicles were sold worldwide from January to June, a 40.4% increase from the same period last year. Hyundai took only a microscopic piece of that pie, 0.2% to be exact. Its subsidiary Kia Motors sold just 139 units of the Ray, Korea's first electric vehicle, in the first half of the year. The automaker's overall EV sales declined from 531 in 2012 to 277 in 2013. The biggest seller in the global EV market in the first half of this year was the Nissan Leaf, with sales of over 24,000, or 40% of global EV sales. It was followed by Tesla Motors Model S, BMW's i3, and Renault's Zoe. Jeju's popularity as a vacation destination, especially among foreigners, is expected to surge in the coming years. To better welcome them, the government is looking to spruce up the island's one and only airport, and soon. Our Kim Hyun-bin has this report.
The only way to fly into Jeju is through the Jeju International Airport. First opened in 1968, it has undergone numerous add-ons and updates to grow with the area's expanding tourism. But after 44 years, it's struggling to keep up, seeing as how the island is not only a popular destination among locals, but also growing numbers of foreign tourists. The Korean government thinks it's time the airport gets a major makeover.
Recently, especially during holidays and certain seasons, I've noticed that airports get very overcrowded with people.
A 5-year study released last week by the Transport Ministry showed the number of air travelers passing through Jeju International reached 20 million last year. However, it's expected to more than double to 44 million by the year 2030. In 4 years, the airport's runways will be unable to handle the increased traffic. Meanwhile, visitors from around the region continue to pour in. The number of Chinese tourists alone has spiked more than tenfold, from about 175,000 in 2008 to over 1.8 million last year. In light of the data, the ministry says the feasibility study for expansion of the airport will be launched soon, in order to accommodate the future influx of visitors. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
It's been common knowledge that Koreans tend to avoid seeking professional help when they experience depression, but now a new survey seems to confirm that fact. The poll was conducted by Korea's Center for Disease Control in 2012 and surveyed adults ages 19 or older in more than 3,800 households nationwide. It shows 12.9%, or 1 in 8 people, said they suffered from depression at least once in the previous year. But less than 10% of them turned to psychiatrists for help. Almost twice the number of women suffered from depression as men. Older people experienced depression at higher rates than young ones did, and people from low-income families had more experiences with depression than high-income groups. A CDC researcher said the treatment rate is low because people are afraid of the social stigma against psychiatric help. Moving on to some sporting news, Korea's Taeguk Warriors began the quest for their first Asian Games gold in 28 years with a win this Sunday evening. In the first Group A match of the Games, the Korean men's national soccer team annihilated their Malaysian rivals 3-0. In the match at Munak Stadium in Incheon, Im Chang-woo, the only starter from Korea's second-tier league, scored the opener in the 27th minute. Kim Seung-dae, the team's tallest player at 1.98 meters tall, fully utilized his height throughout the game, recording a goal and an assist. Korea faces Saudi Arabia in Ansan on Wednesday. The Incheon Asian Games officially starts on Friday, but due to time constraints, the early rounds of the football tournament had to begin a little earlier. And in other sports news today, Korea's under-17 soccer team beat Japan 2-0 to earn a ticket to the U17 World Cup. Now the weather. On Monday, we'll have warmer daytime temperatures, but chilly conditions in the evening in most parts of Korea. 2 signs that autumn is right around the corner. And now let's take a look at the weather conditions elsewhere around the world. And that brings us to the end of our newscast. Thank you for watching. Do have a great start to your new week.